And welcome back. So, with Ikoria finally fully spoiled, seeing everything, there's a little bit of good, a little bit of bad there. I figured instead of going on, maybe I'll do on Tuesday a rundown and everything else that got spoiled. But I figured while it is relevant, why not give my first take until I actually get my hands on the cards and actually try them out on who do I think is the best and the worst of the new Apex creatures, the Apex monsters. You have the Apex of Forever, Apex of Death, so forth and so on. So this is my general take based on what I have seen, how I perceive the game of Magic, obviously. And obviously, everyone's going to have their different opinions. Now, I should say right up front, every one of these cards is really good. So there's no bad card in the bunch. But there are those that are going to be better than others. So this is my take from worst to best. What is the best Apex monster in Ikoria? So starting in right at the bottom spot, unfortunately, goes to Brokos, I believe it is. Brokos, the Apex of Forever. Now, when figuring out who kind of was better than others, I kind of had to grade it on a couple curves. Like how hard is it to cast them, what their ability is, how easy of it do they fit into other decks. And Brokos, I was actually surprised that Brokos has got a nice flat rate, pretty much going across the board. He doesn't suffer really in any category. He's a 6/6 for 5. He ties with two of the other Titans, or I have Titans. Kaiju's Titans from the Godzilla Legendary. He ties in terms of mana cost, in terms of converted mana cost, with two of the other Apexes. He's a 6/6 body for 5, basically, for trample. So that was all a good curve. The issue I actually ran into wasn't even where he could fit into a deck. He could fit into most decks in that color pattern, or color pipe. The problem I actually ran into was his mutate ability actually doesn't do anything. Now, what do I mean by that? You can cast him from the grave repeatedly. That's fantastic. But when you actually break it down, at best, you'll be getting usually a 6/6 with an added ability of whatever creature you mutated on. Maybe never. And that's fine. You can get a 6/6 back, no problem. And that can swing in immediately. But then again, there's other times where that's not gonna be a factor. If you have no creatures on the field, technically speaking, if you have no creatures on the field, mutating is not going to matter at all. But specifically with this guy, whereas the other ones, you can still cast them from your hand, just as normal creatures. Whereas if this guy's in the graveyard and you got your board wiped out, while you could play the other ones to kind of fill out that spot, this guy's just going to sit in there till you get a creature out. Now, that's not to say that in a deck where this guy is being put into, you'll have any trouble really having a creature on the field most of the time. You can probably one-drop something and then mutate it back on there. But the point is oddly enough, while that mutate from the grave is really good and pretty much almost always guarantees you have a creature on the field that's going to be a big 6/6 with some other ability, the other guys' mutate abilities just are able to do more because they actually do things beyond just resurrecting the guy continually from the grave. So while I really like this guy, I don't mind the Soul Tie color pattern or color combination. He's unfortunately, I think, the lowest man on a totem pole. Then coming in number 4, we have Vadrak. Now, Vadrak, I actually was considering putting in the number 5 spot. Again, none of these guys are bad. Let's be very clear about that. Where I think he edges out Brokos is in a few ways. A, he's the cheapest one to cast because all of them deal with 3 mana symbols in their mana cost, and then most of them have a converted mana cost beyond that. But Vadrak only has his 3 mana symbols, white, red, and blue, which makes him, technically speaking, the easiest one of the group to cast. So he's already the cheapest to cast. That being said, he is the weakest one at 3/3, but he compensates with that with First Strike and Flying ability coming onto the battlefield. This also, in turn, makes his mutate cost the cheapest as well. But where he unfortunately, and this is where he really suffered in this countdown, is that he's probably the most restrictive when it comes to deck building. Because his ability allows you to play 3 converted mana cost non-creature spells from your grave. The problem with that, anytime you mutate, so you'll at least get 1 mutate off with this guy, no problem, and get something back from the grave. But the problem is, if you want to continue to do that, you do need to be in a certain type of deck build. Unlike everyone else on this list, we still got 3 more guys to go, you just can't slide him into a deck of that color combination and, work a little bit around it and he's good to go. You do have to do some sort of structuring with this card. Like when I get a bunch of crap from the set, and I mean, I'm going to be getting a lot of stuff, when I make a mutate deck, I'm not going to immediately be considering putting this guy in. I'll probably consider putting him in other decks or making decks involving him. But he would not go into a mutate deck because his mutate ability doesn't rely on creatures. It relies on non-creatures, which don't involve mutate. So his mutate is kind of counterproductive to itself, which is weird. And because of that, he placed a lot lower on the list than he should have, probably. Like, no one scored, I did like a 1 out of 5 in terms of scoring, and I added it all up, so forth and so on. No one, was terrible at all with their scores or anything like that. It's just that in terms of, deck building, he is the most specific in terms of how you build your deck around him. Other than that, though, he's great. He's definitely got some of the better artwork. Like, I'll admit, Brokos' artwork seems a bit more old school to me compared to some of these other guys. His artwork, I love Badrock's artwork. That is awesome. But that was number 4. Coming in at number 3 is, I always get this guy's name a little wrong. Netheroi? Now, Netheroi came in number 3 because Netheroi is just overall really messed up good. Anytime you mutate, you're basically bringing stuff back. That's really freaking good. But here's the thing. That is amazing, and you're going to, get your field, maxed out, everything along those lines. But if they also got big stuff, it's still going to be a battle of attrition. Now, he makes up for that by being a 5/5 with Death Touch and Lifelink, which is really helpful. You can easily go and clash into something huge. Hell, you go. Let me think of a big creature right off the top of my head. Hell, the 11/11 Titanus Rex. That thing's got trample, but you could crash into that and or block with it. Only lose 1 life because you're blocking 5 of that damage, gaining 5 more, so you only lose 1, and you take down the Titanus Rex. Honestly, the issue I'm seeing with Netheroi long term is I'm going to see maybe 1 or 2 times you're getting the effect off, and then the effect's not doing anything because you basically resurrected everything from your graveyard. Now, obviously, once doing that, you should be in the winning position. That also said, though, unless the things have haste, don't expect to be attacking with those things on the first turn, which means that gives your opponent time to possibly do something to get rid of stuff on the field. So it's an interesting little, not a glass cannon, but it's kind of like a recharge mutate ability. Where it's like, okay, boom, play that ability. Gotta recharge, gotta fill the graveyard. Now, luckily, there are a lot of cards in the set that do put cards from your deck into the graveyard. So that could definitely help you out in the deck building here. But if you're not getting creatures in the grave, then you're just filling up your grave with stuff that you could have used. And I've never been a big self-mill fan. I would prefer to mill my opponent out so they just can't use their stuff, even if it's a deck that involves that. If you're milling right, you're milling a lot of cards per turn, hopefully. Therefore, they're probably losing stuff they could already use anyway. Now, there's stuff you can play from the grave, obviously, that can counteract that, but you get my point. Yeah, I've never been a self-milling fan myself. But still, Netheroi is still fantastic in terms of just bringing down a 5/5 for 5 with Lifelink and Death Touch. And then if you want to mutate onto it and bring stuff back at least once, you'll get it off. But yeah, he's my number 3 pick. I also like the fact that he's Biolante in terms of his Godzilla alternate art, which is fantastic. So coming in at the silver medal, the award goes to Iluna. Iluna, Apex of Wishes. I believe that's what it is. Now, Iluna was the first Apex we actually had spoiled, and this is a Ghidorah's art, which is fantastic as well. Now, in terms of actual legitimate lore, Iluna might actually be the strongest one because apparently it can theoretically grant wishes. It's almost like a djinn. But in terms of actual power and ability, it's as strong as Brokos, but it has different abilities. In fact, I'd actually say it's stronger than Brokos, and that's partly why I put it on here, the list at number 2, because not only does it have Trample added onto a 5 and monocost, different colors admittedly, and 6/6 body, but it has Trample as well. The key difference between Brokos, Radruk and Nithori going into a Luna. A Luna's ability is almost always relevant. When it mutates, you're essentially cascading until you get a permanent. And then you put the permanent onto the battlefield, whether it be a creature, an artifact, whatever it is, a planeswalker. You are getting something every time you mutate, almost pretty much guaranteed, no matter what. And that is a much more relevant ability than the other three abilities. Because the other ones are a bit more, the other ones are conditional. Brokos has to be in the grave. Vadrak, you need, first off, you need stuff in your grave, but also they need to be converted monocost and non-creatures. Nethroi needs something in the grave. Odd how almost all these need something in the grave, don't they? Or at least 3 out of the 5 do. Needs something in the grave to resurrect, and then it's not doing anything so long as there's nothing in the grave. But with Luna, you're always getting something out of that effect. And if you're, pulling out more mutate creatures left and right, you're able to mutate either onto them, you're cycling through your deck so you can get to your other mutate creatures, therefore you can mutate more onto him, and therefore you are getting more benefit out of your effects. Overall, he's just a more well-rounded card, I think, than the other three. Not to say that the other three, again, are bad by any stretch of the means. They're not. It's just he, I think, is the second best among them. Which, oddly enough, kind of points out who my number one is. My number one, Snapdax. Try Snapdax cereal. It does sound like a cereal mascot, doesn't it? But Snapdax, by far, in my opinion, is the best of the quintet, I believe it is. Now, why is he the best? Well, A, he's got the second easiest monocost to cast at 4 converted monocost, but his stat line for his monocost is fantastic at a 3/5. Then he has double strike, and that's without even mutating him. So you already have a 3/5 double strike, which means you have a 6/5, essentially. You're hitting for 6 for 4 mana. That's fantastic. But then you mutate him, you have effectively a lightning helix every time you mutate. You can mutate just removal is, I think, the only thing that outclasses Luna here. Luna can get you stuff, but Snapdash could theoretically burn the other stuff that Luna gets. In fact, you can take out pretty much any one of the Apexes with this card, because if you mutate twice in a turn, which is very possible, especially in late game, then you're just doing 8 damage to any one of them, and they're dead. As far as I can tell, I mean, there are hexproof counters in the set, but unless you give them hexproof, it's not going to do anything. Or they can't do anything against this card simply for the fact that if it mutates more than once, it's done. There's very few things, even for a set of large creatures, there's almost nothing that could survive 2 mutates with this card, unless it's got the Colossification on it, or unless it's got, or unless it's like Titanus Rex. There's really nothing that can survive mutating against this card. And the fact of the matter is, it's this card's so cheap that you can get it out turn 3 or 4 and then just keep mutating it, so long as it's not killed, mutating onto it throughout the rest of the game. You can mutate the other Apexes onto this and have a ball, because then if you mutate, let's just assume a Luna on this, mutate it on top of this, you now have a creature that is going to be a double strike, 6/6 flying trample that just pinged for 4 and gave you 4, and basically got another card from the top of the library again. And you do it. So yeah, it's it's a very this card is actually kind of nuts. How easy it is to cast, how strong it is. It is a very powerful card indeed, and in my opinion, it is the best of the Apex monsters. But who do you think right now is the best of the Apex monsters? Let me know in the comments below. But thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. As always, if you want to review something, put in the comments below. Let us know. We'll do a review of it at some point. So thanks for watching. I will see you maybe a little later, maybe tomorrow, maybe. It's the week of what ifs coming up. I'm doing it a little early because April ends about midway through the week this year. So I'm figuring I'll just do an extended Who Would Win week, get a lot of my versus matches out of the way, and just start What If week this week. I may have another video later today. We'll see what happens. Till then, thanks for watching. See you next time.